Hey everybody, it's Jimmy and Bill. So today we're in Clearwater Beach, and what we're talking about today is how bad is the housing market recession? Existing home sales are back to 1978 levels. And before you start commenting, let me explain. It's a really interesting article. I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
But I started reading the article, and it kind of does make sense. The recession in the U.S. market for existing home sales has been so deep that in April that we were back to the 70s levels despite population growth since that time, according to recent data from the National Association of Realtors.
Okay.
All right, so think about this one. In April 1978, there was 4.09 million U.S. existing home sales.
Okay.
That was 1978. April 2024, there was 4.14 million U.S. existing home sales.
Okay.
So pretty much between 1978 and 2024,
roughly the same.
Roughly the same. But here's the caveat, and we're going to go more into this. In 1978, there was 223 million U.S. population. So we had 223 million people living in the United States.
Right.
In 2024, we have 341 million people living in the United States. But we sold the same number of houses.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep, okay.
So in 1978, we had a lot less population, a lot less people that could buy, to buy homes.
Right.
But our sales were pretty much the same.
Right.
So that's what we're talking about today.
Be interested to see what they say in this article. I have some thoughts rolling around in my head, but I'm curious.
I'll have you kick it off. In the meantime, do me a favor, consider subscribing, give it a thumbs up and share. And it's greatly appreciated. Go for it, Bill.
The reason, of course, is that housing affordability has deteriorated, so much of the buyers and sellers alike have pulled back from the market. Many homeowners who would otherwise like to sell their home and buy something else are staying put rather than trading in their 3% mortgage rate for a 7% rate or thereabouts.
True.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Golden handcuffs. We spoke about that on
a ton of times.
numerous.
Right. But on the flip side of that, there's people still selling and buying because at the end of the day, if you have to buy or you move, what have you, you're going to do it.
Right. And right now, as of when we're recording this, rates are still in the 7s.
Right.
But they're saying rates are going to be in 5.5 to 6.5 by the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't see that's no.
But there's I don't think they're going to cut rates this year. But
there's so much, and then some of the data that just came out like yesterday, today, kind of information, it kind of debunks that entire. So. But
imagine them raising the rates. What would it do?
Oh yeah.
And
so we'll see when the FMOC, has their meeting. Something else in here with the 7% and the 3%. People need to take into consideration not just this, our new catchphrase with golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
But when was the last time we had 3% interest rates?
Never.
Exactly. So if people are hoping to get into their 3%, it's probably a long shot. And how long are you going to wait for that to happen again?
It's not going to happen.
Right. And if something like that were to happen again, another, national disaster, global disaster, something along those lines, are you going to be in a position to purchase a home at that point? We don't know what kind of issue it would be, but just something to think about. So we had a lot of sales because that 3% opened the door to a lot of people purchasing a home. So in addition, according to a forecast published this week by Goldman Sachs, the recovery for existing home sales could be a slog. So slow recovery. So Goldman Sachs projects that existing home sales will slowly drift up from 4.1 in 2024 to 4.5 million in 2027. Not only is that far below the 6.1 million during the height of the pandemic housing boom in 21, it's also well below the 5.3 million U.S. existing home sales during normal times back in 2019. So 6.1 million, that was the most homes sold in history, in recorded history, since we started tracking it. Yep.
Okay.
So when we sold that, so we're going to move from 4.1 to 4.5. I get it. We do need a little slowing of the market. It's, everything's got to kind of stabilize. Remember, we talked about this in other videos. Instead of these massive peaks and valleys, we want that nice, slow, steady you know, it's that little ripple in the water again.
But you have to admit, it's interesting that we sold just about the same number of houses in 78 as we did in 23.
Right.
Or 20 in April.
In April, yeah.
April of 24. You know, and we had less population. So that's a.
It's an interesting. It's definitely interesting. So does that go back to when, you know, in those late 70s? Now you're existing. You know, you didn't have as many existing sales. It was we were building and kind of we were spreading out from, you know, the hubs, you know, the big cities.
Right.
So we were starting to spread out a little bit more and develop the communities that we have now. You know, Clearwater, things like that. They were growing. Where we're at filming today didn't exist. You know, most of the stuff that's here today it wasn't there back then, or it was just starting to be planned and broken ground. So it kind of makes sense. And then affordability was different in the 70s and 80s as well. You know, with the interest rates and everything were way higher.
Oh yeah, well, you know, I don't know the exact year, but you know, rates went up to like 17, 18% to buy a house.
Right.
But you know, people are going to comment, and I want you guys to comment.
Yeah.
But you know, the houses back then were 80,000, 120,000.
Oh yeah.
But you made less money too.
But yeah, you made significantly less money. So, I mean, even in the 90s, I was picking up pennies because gas wasn't even over $1 yet.
Right.
You know, we were still at 80 cents for a gallon of gas.
I used to go out on a Friday night with $5. That's enough for gas, food,
everything.
Everything.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this recession for existing home sales has coincided with pricing corrections in some pandemic boom towns, parts of Texas and Colorado. Many housing markets in the Northeast and Midwest where inventory has remained tight have continued to see rising home prices.
True statement.
Yep.
Okay, so here's the thing. A lot of people have been commenting on our videos saying, hey, you know what? Prices are dropping here where I am. Prices are dropping there. But people, I'm noticing a trend, like even in Hudson, where like we said, where I'm building and stuff, everybody who puts their homes up for sale tries to put the price a little bit too high, in my opinion. And the realtors are kind of, just to get the listing, some of the realtors are just saying, okay, whatever you want. And then 2-3 weeks later, or even sooner, they're like, hey, we have nobody interested in this. So now they're bringing it back to more realistic prices.
Right. We call that in the industry buying the listing.
Right. So you're kind of wasting a week or two.
Right. And it actually is relatively detrimental to your listing because you've lost momentum in your listing. So if you're going to list, you want to sell it at maybe listed a little bit just above market value because you've got room for negotiations. You know, you don't want to leave money on the table, but you don't want to be so overpriced where people go, you guys are insane and I'm not going to make an offer, which happens.
So look at this one. I just spoke to a realtor and multi-million-dollar house was sold within the same day.
Yeah.
Because it was priced correctly.
Correct.
Even though it was multi-million dollars.
Yep. And right now you're also starting to see, truly, the data is not completely out, but we're starting to see a trend is the upper value homes, so the higher price point homes are the ones that are kind of selling. So you'll see where we talk about median price point, that's just the middle. So they take the lowest price and the highest price and everything in between, and then they chop it directly in half. That's the median price point. So you're seeing reports where the median price is up on homes because we've reported on this. And that's just the middle. So what they're starting to see with the data as they start crunching the numbers is the median price point is increasing, not necessarily because your home's gaining value,
right? Okay.
But it's because the majority of homes being sold right now are in the higher price points. So it changes the median, not the average.
That's good information.
So it's just something to think about. And when you're looking at these averages in a national standpoint or a state standpoint, you've got to really get it down to the local level with your realtor. That's the most important thing that I can say about it, hands down. You can go, well, this guy sold 6 months ago. It doesn't matter what happened 6 months ago at this point. We're looking at things in the last 30, 60, maybe 90 days, comparing 3 or 4 properties that have sold that are comparable to your property, and that's how we derive a real price.
Good information. Additionally, the U.S. market for new homes has fared much better than the market for existing homes. There are 2 reasons for this. Single-family home builders don't have a lock-in effect, which is true, because they're brand new homes. They continue to develop and build new homes, which is also true. We're going to talk about this. Home builders were needed have introduced affordability adjustments like outright home price cuts or mortgage rate buy downs to move product. Many sellers in existing market have resisted coming down on price. Builders had, during the peaks, during the, what do we call it, the crazy years.
Oh, the unicorn years.
Unicorn years,
Yep.
That's it. Okay, the builders, you know, they could get, you can't negotiate with builders. They could have auctions for their land.
Right.
They could do whatever. Now, that's all gone.
Right.
But right now, builders, you know, could say, okay, we're not going to build these 3,000 square foot homes anymore because people can't afford them and stuff. So let's build a 2,300 square foot home.
Right.
Okay. My question to you is, because you're in build centers all the time, and I'm just doing the inspections, but are these still more affordable than existing homes?
So it depends on where you go. Now, you might have to, when I say concessions, I'm not talking contract concessions, I'm talking personal concessions.
Like bullnose and...
Oh, no, not necessarily. I'm talking more about where do you want to live? Driving that extra 10 minutes from being in the hub. So Pinellas County, for the most part, is built out.
Yeah, so pretty much where we are here.
There's some new construction, but not a ton. So when you're comparing a new construction property to a resale property, it's obviously the new one is most of the time going to win because you got new roof, new electric, new plumbing, new everything. Even if the house has been renovated to the nines, it's still a new house, right? So if you go out to, like, let's say east part of Pasco, where there's a ton of building.
Which is the county where I live.
So,
and he lives too.
Right, we both live right by each other, and there's a ton of building going on out there. So the resale stuff is competing with the new construction, but the new construction is taking place just a little outside of that little, you know, hub of where you want to be, like Trinity, Wesley Chapel, things like that.
But
so the values are lower, but you have to make a concession to maybe drive 10 more minutes.
And we did actually a video, I think it was published recently, we published it, saying, you know, if you want affordable homes, you know, sometimes you have to make concessions.
Yep.
Like we talked about in that video, you know, if you want an affordable home, make a concession, go from a house to a townhouse or a condo.
Exactly.
Or something like that, and use it as a stepping stone, you know, but you're talking about a builder might be a better deal on a house, but you might have to drive an extra 10 minutes to get to the mall.
Exactly, because the infrastructure for the area is not necessarily as robust as it is in the areas that are developed.
Yeah, but think about it, my area, okay? You lived there in my area, Trinity, before I moved there, and you said there was nothing there, and you could pick up a house for like 200, 220.
It was nothing.
Nothing. Now you can't touch a house.
Nope.
You know, because it's all built up. We have everything there. Now they're building way out.
Yeah.
Because there's no place else to build.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right. So when you go out there, I had to wait and drive further to go to Publix because there wasn't anything near me. You know, just restaurants, nothing was really, really, really close. I had to drive an extra 10, 15 minutes to get there. But because when I bought out there, the prices were lower because there wasn't infrastructure yet. You know, now there's infrastructure, the values have gone through the roof.
So give us an example. In Trinity, what year did you move out roughly?
When I left?
Yeah, roughly.
Oh, that would have been 2012-ish.
Okay, so right towards the end of the crash, you know?
Yep.
Okay, so, and then you sold it for, let's just say, hypothetically, the price I'm not expecting you, 230, 240, 250, that?
Oh, I remember the prices, yeah. So we were back into the fives at that point.
Oh, you were?
From the size of my house and where we were, it definitely wasn't where it was pre-crash, but we were starting to recover in the 12.
Okay, so you're talking about 10, 12 years ago.
Yep.
Okay, so now the same house, if you want to buy the same exact house that you lived in.
It was in the fives back then, and right now, if you wanted to move into that neighborhood, because I've looked at some houses in that neighborhood, if you see a house in that neighborhood for 5, it's because there's something wrong with it.
Okay.
They haven't done anything to it. It's more or less a derelict house, which there aren't many in there.
Would you say people doubled the value of their house?
Oh, absolutely. Depending on when you purchased. If you purchased during the peak before the crash, then you're still making money, you know, because you lived there in the property. But if you bought before that the peak and then sold when everything got back to normal, you definitely made money. No doubt about it.
So let's talk about mortgage a little bit. Like Goldman Sachs predicts the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate will fall to 6.5 by the end of 2024. I don't know.
Maybe.
And to 6.3 by the end of 2025. So it's not going to fluctuate a lot. Between 6.5 and 7.5.
Right, but that's a little bump down, not a huge, just because you're moving a 0.5%.
And I'm going to show you where I'm going with
this.
An analysis at Investment Bank forecasts that U.S. home prices will rise 3.8% in 2024, followed by another rise in forecast of values at 4.4% in 2025. So, let's say rates are 7.5 today. I didn't look today, but and people say, no, it's too much. I'm going to wait till it goes 6.5% or 6%. I'm going to wait for that. I'm going to wait for rates to go down, and then I'm going to go buy a house.
Okay.
But according to them, I'm not saying I agree with this, but according to them, the price of the house is rising 3.8%.
Right. Well, that's just simple math.
Go for it. Explain what I'm talking about.
So when they're talking these numbers here, that's a national average of price increase. So every year I've done videos on it, we've done videos on it, tons of people have done videos on this, and you can look, there's graphs going all the way back into the 70s, and you can see where everything started to increase in value because they're not making more land. So as an area gets built out, and it's desirable, like Clearwater as an example, the prices are going up. Most of the houses are in the 70s, but they're still, built in the 70s, but they're still going up in value because everything's going up in value.
So are you doing yourself a favor when we're waiting a year and a half for rates to go down to 6.5 or 6.25?
No, so there's two schools of thoughts on this. It's like there's the school of thought where people go, all right, well, I'm gonna wait and I'm gonna continue to rent. And let's just do some hypothetical math. So at 3%, 5,000, that's 15, let's just call it you gained 15,000 in equity. Let's even make it just simple. You got $5,000 this year in equity, right? To be super conservative, but 15 is probably more realistic. And you're paying rent. You're not paying your mortgage down, right? And how much is that 0.5% or 1% gonna make in your house that you have to wait 5 years to get to?
Okay, the argument on this part is going to be that most of the interest is at the beginning of the mortgage, so you're pretty much paying all interest. And 4 to 5 people think it's a bad time to buy a house. How do you overcome those when somebody says that?
So if you're correct, because the majority of your loan, it's not that they recalculate it.
No.
It's just, let's say you've got 7% on 500,000 versus 7% on 200,000 is significantly different.
Right.
So that's why the majority is paid up front. You could do a couple of small little things. I'm not a financial analyst or anything like that, but assuming your loan provides for it, and which most of them do, make one extra payment to principal a year and it cuts your overall spend for your mortgage significantly.
So, the rule of thumb that I always go by is if you need a house, you need a house.
Well, yeah.
But if you can't afford a house, you can't afford a house.
Exactly.
It's pretty black and white.
Yeah.
If you're looking at a house and you love the house, and there's still gems in the rough. I know.
Oh, yeah.
I know a house that, near my neighborhood, there's a few houses sitting now. They've been sitting for months. Nobody's buying them because they're asking too much money. But somebody listed it at a good price and a good thing one day again.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a house by mine. You just have to go see this house, and then you would understand why it's a diamond, because it's priced correctly for the neighborhood, so it doesn't stand out until you get in the house, and you're like, wow.
Right. So you have to look for those gems, but if you find those gems, you really have to jump on it. And are you going to be saying, no, I'm not doing it because I have a 0.5%?
So here's the other side of that equation too. So yeah, okay, let's even say it's 1%, and we're not working off of a small little number.
Okay.
So let's say you're waiting, well, I want to wait until my comfort number is 6%. I can afford the house, but I want to wait till 6 because I don't want to pay all that interest. Again, how much did the house go up in value for the time that you were waiting, and how long does it wait for it to go down? So let's say you've gained in 3 or 4 years, $20,000. How much did you really save by that 1%?
Right, if you had to buy the house 4 years from now.
Correct. So how much do you really save? You don't, But what could you do? You could refinance your house. Now, I don't just throw that out willy-nilly, like that's an option.
Because you're pretty much saying, marry the house, buy the rate.
If I ever hear that again, we're never doing a video together. I hate that statement because it's ignorance.
But that's what people are
Not you, but just that's what I hear people say.
That's what they're going to put in the statements.
Right, but that's this very, very oversimplistic way to say things. But if you have to buy a house, your objection to me is only interest rate, nothing else. That's what I'm saying. Your interest rate objection, your objection is interest rate only.
Yeah.
So that's what we overcome.
So there's other people, we don't want to drag this video on too long, but there's other people out there like Zillow, like Goldman Sachs just said it, you know, realtor, article of the experts, and nobody's saying that the prices are going to crash.
Nope.
Okay, nobody's saying that.
No.
There's a lot of YouTubers saying that prices are going to crash, and there is a lot of price cuts, but
cuts and crash are different.
Right, they're different. So if you're waiting for a housing crash, according to the experts, the instruments to cause that, like it did in 2006, 7, 8, 9, are not there.
Right.
The subprime mortgage things are not there.
Other things would have to create this.
Yeah, other things. But that's today's video. If you have nothing to add,
just remember always, it's what you need to do.
And if you could afford the house.
Right. If you're comfortable with it, if it's what you need to do. I've worked with plenty of clients that worry about interest rate, and I've worked with plenty of clients that could care less about interest rate because they're like, I'm not going anywhere. Because I'm going to live in this house for 20 years or 15 years, so I'm not an investor. Don't pretend you're an investor when you're a homeowner who wants to have a house.
Yeah, like be in love with the house and be able to afford it and just enjoy yourself.
Enjoy, love your house, put the money that you want. It's the place where you live, it's your comfort zone. And if you're like, well, I'm gonna flip this house in 5 years because I'm gonna make money, well, now you're an investor and you need to look at other factors, and that's something that your realtor needs to know about.
Yeah, that's a totally different thing.
But that's what people put into their heads.
But if you're going there saying I need a place to live, that I'm comfortable, great neighborhood, good for the kids, great schools, whatever. Whatever your thing is, job nearby, and you could afford it, it's time to buy. If you have doubts that you could afford it, or it doesn't feel right to you in your gut, my opinion is don't buy it.
Right, exactly, period.
And always do an inspection.
Right.
Hey, do me a favor, check out this next video. I think you guys will be really, really interested. It'll be right here. And consider subscribing. It really helps the channel out, and we'll talk to you on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.